everyone. Welcome to Locked On Lakers for Thursday. Brian Kamenetsky, Andy Kamenetsky. I've got 4 words for you. Giannis Antetokounmpo, future Laker. That's next.
You are Locked On Lakers, your daily Los Angeles Lakers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks to everybody for making Locked On Lakers first listen of every day, Monday through Friday. No matter where you get your podcasts, this one's always free and never behind paywall. Locked On Lakers on YouTube is where you can go hang out with 35,000 plus subscribers to the channel, Andy, all of whom are recognizing that the summer is officially here when it comes to the Lakers because crazy rumors are popping up around some of the best players in the NBA, which is how we know that the world, at least in one way, is operating as it should. Lots to cover in regards to Giannis rumors. Interesting stuff coming out of game 1 between Minnesota and Golden State that makes you question perhaps some of JJ Redick's habits throughout the playoffs, and a quick note on international basketball. All of that for today's show. But first, I want to let people know that today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Andy, I am going out and buying myself a Giannis jersey. It's a shame I didn't keep my jersey from the last time the Lakers had an Antetokounmpo because it would have saved me some money, but unfortunately I'm gonna have to buy a fresh one.
It was Costas, correct? Did we have Costas? So. I believe we had Costas. By the way,
you may have noticed, Andy, that I did not actually use the brother's first name, and it's because I briefly was unsure as to which one it was. I thought it was Costas as opposed to Thanasis, but I wasn't 100% sure, so I just skipped it.
It was, in fact, we had Costas Antetokounmpo on the Lakers when it was actually during the 2020 championship season. And I'm pretty sure that
all he does is win rings.
Well, I'm pretty sure that Thanasis was on the Bucks team.
He's on the Bucks, yeah.
Right, with Giannis that won the title. So all 3 brothers have championships. All 3 did equal amount of work.
For all the hand wringing over whether Bronny being a Laker and all this and whatever, I honestly holding a spot for Costas as like a potential lure for Giannis down the road is probably even more egregious. At least LeBron was already on the team. Like, we were just using that kid as bait, for God's sakes.
He looked pretty happy to be there, man. Costas always seemed to be in a really good mood. But
I mean,
yeah,
wouldn't you be? He's playing in the NBA.
It's interesting after the Bucks' most recent early exit and Dame Lillard's unfortunate injury, and nobody knows exactly when he's going to return to the court, and Brook Lopez, an impending free agent. There just seems to be a lot of signs of the era officially being over for Giannis in Milwaukee. I think, honestly, that there has been this much chatter about it this early after the exit. I know we've done this dance with Giannis a few times, but this seems to be the first time that people aren't refuting it, or people aren't trying to temper the expectations that Giannis could ask for a trade.
Right.
This seems to be people expecting at this point he's going to ask for a trade.
The reason, but it's there makes some sense before we even get to the Lakers part of it, and the Lakers' role in these rumors. It does the one thing you can say about the Giannis talk is that it actually makes sense because the Bucks were going to be in trouble from a CBA salary cap roster construction standpoint.
No assets whatsoever anymore.
Before Dame got hurt.
Yeah.
They were in trouble before that. This
Doc
season,
didn't want the job. Remember, Doc didn't even want the coaching job.
Poor guy.
I know.
Being, made to do it and all that.
I know.
But, so they were going to have problems. This season clearly didn't go the way that they wanted it to. It was not nearly. They were on their way down. In some ways, kind of similar but even in kind of a worse way than the Lakers were pre-Luka, where like they're not terrible, but there's no clear avenue to become the best team in your conference again. And with Dame now being hurt and certainly older and all these other things, the Bucks just may be in a position where they have to look into trading Giannis, because they're basically putting themselves in a position to be a perpetual 7 seed, because Giannis is so good still that he can lift a team like that into the playoffs in the East. But you're not going to beat Boston. You're not going to beat New York. You're not going to beat Cleveland. You're not going to beat, Orlando is probably as a brighter. Indiana's got a brighter future. They're clearly falling behind.
Right. Detroit is way on the way up. And
quite frankly, even teams like Brooklyn probably have a cleaner place to be. They're worse now, much worse, but they're in a cleaner place to be able to try to accelerate past teams like Milwaukee. So the first thing that makes this not silly is it worth talking about Giannis not being a Buck anymore? The answer is absolutely. In my opinion, the answer is absolutely. That's step one before encountering a silly season rumor about the Lakers. And at the very least, this one clears that bar for me.
Right. And this began, or at least the origin of the reason people are talking about it right now is Howard Beck from The Ringer, friend of the show, at one point friend of the network, the entire network.
And I'd like to think, Andy, just a friend.
Yep. He was on Zach Lowe's podcast, and they were talking about the Giannis situation, and Howard said, quote, "I poked around a little bit a few days ago, and the initial thing I got from one person was just some rumblings that it's already just the big cities, one of the LA teams or one of the New York teams, or maybe Miami, not a big market, but a glamour market, mid-sized market." And, obviously that got people immediately wondering about, the viability of Giannis as a Laker. And, obviously, if this were possible for the Lakers to do, and we'll get into some of the reasons that even if the Lakers can do it, and even if they can pull it off, there are complications afterwards. But if it is possible to get Giannis, the answer is obviously yes, and work out the things that we are going to get into later down the road. Get Giannis.
Just so people know, Giannis, if you weren't watching closely, averaged 30.5 points a game, 12 rebounds, 6.5 assists, and shot 60% from the floor.
Right. He is going to end up finishing top 5 in MVP voting, which is going to be a season-long streak for Giannis. He is still one of the best players in the league.
He's actually, we talk about how Luka all the time is top 3, top 5 at worst, or whatever, in terms of how he's regarded around the league. I think Giannis is probably one of the only players that, if I had to guess, not done this poll myself, would probably come out ahead of Luka.
Probably. Probably. Because
I think for most GMs, if you just ranked everybody right now, it would go Jokic, Giannis, maybe Shea or whatever, but probably then like Luka and down the line.
Sure. But Giannis is definitely one of those guys. And, again, if the Lakers could get him, the answer is yes. But I would say, just looking at the Lakers situation, unless Giannis signals that he only wants to be a Laker, and even then, it's important for people to know, Giannis cannot opt out until the 2027 offseason. So 2 seasons from now, when he's 33. So if I'm a team around the league and I feel like I'm a Giannis away, like from realistically putting myself in that championship mix, I got to be honest, I would trade for him anyway.
Absolutely.
And get his best remaining prime years, especially since Giannis does not seem wired to rock the boat if he's not at, his first choice destination, make trouble. That just does not seem to be who he is at all. I would just trade for him if I could, get his 2 best remaining prime years and worry about the rest later on. And if I happen to win a championship and then Giannis leaves, I can easily live with that. Frankly, I can live with it even if you don't win a championship, just that you took that shot.
They're not, nobody's upset in Toronto.
Right, exactly.
For their 1 year with Kawhi.
I would be really, really surprised if the Lakers can offer the best possible deal for the Bucks, because the Bucks, they need high draft picks, they need young talent. The Lakers expiring contracts.
There's a solution to what you're talking about here, and it's not easy, and it requires a couple things to happen first, and I'll explain it next.
Locked On Lakers is brought to you by Upwork. Scaling your business requires the right expertise at the right time. With Upwork, you can find specialized freelancers in marketing, development, design, and more. Experts ready to help you take your business to the next level. Upwork gives businesses flexibility by connecting them with top freelance talent across multiple industries, including IT, AI, web development, and marketing. Whether you need extra hands for a project or long-term partnership, Upwork makes hiring simple and affordable. You can find the right talent. If you need help with a marketing campaign, Upwork can help connect you with a freelance expert who will deliver incredible results. Instead of hiring full-time, Upwork can help you find affordable, top-tier freelancers if that's what you're looking for to scale your business efficiently. Visit Upwork.com right now. Post your job for free. That's UPWORK.com, Upwork.com, to connect with top talent and grow your business today.
Locked On Lakers is also brought to you by Game Time. There's nothing like the atmosphere of an NBA playoff game, something you can not currently experience in Los Angeles, but you could somewhere. Every bucket, every defensive stop, every moment feels huge. It's electric in the arena. Trust us. And with Game Time, you can be part of that without the stress.
Too soon.
I'm just a man reading copy, Andy. But you can go to other events, LAFC tickets, Angel City tickets, electric atmospheres in those places as well. Get yourself to a Dodger game. Those guys are good. They're still playing.
They're not even trying, and they're good.
Game Time they're on their 11th starting pitcher, and they're still like 16 games over 500. Game Time makes it easy and fast to get playoff tickets or even regular season ones, even when demand is sky high. Prices on the app actually go down as the start of the game gets closer. I do this all the time with soccer games, no question. And last-minute deals can save you up to 60%. Love that you can see these last-minute deals. Just make a decision a couple hours even before your event is going to start, and then get yourself to there, and you're saving a bunch of money at the time, and you can see the pricing all in, no surprise fees at checkout. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, you redeem the code LOCKEDONNBA, LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. So, quick word on this. We mentioned for Wednesday's show that Andy and I are both going to start paying significantly more attention to international basketball this year. It should be noted, because obviously with the presence of Luka, it should be noted that Andy and I, it's not that we didn't follow European basketball particularly closely. We've just never been, like Andy in particular, has never really even been a big follower of like Olympic basketball, Team USA and all that kind of stuff. And so it's not any sort of antipathy. We never really had a reason. So anyway, but now we do, and are excited to. So thank you to everybody for leaving questions, leaving comments, little primers on what's, the importance of Eurobasket, why it matters, and all that kind of stuff. We are excited to get into it with you as the off season continues. The Lakers, like you say, don't have young talent on a let's get Giannis kind of level.
It goes even more.
They don't have draft picks.
They don't have draft picks. The player that would be theoretically the centerpiece of this trade would be Austin Reeves. Austin Reeves is of no use whatsoever to a rebuilding Milwaukee Bucks team. He's too old for that already. He is, I believe, 27 at this point. Unless noted free agent destination Milwaukee can rebuild on the fly, Austin Reeves is of no use to them. Dalton Connect, while I think has nice potential moving forward, he is not good enough, or certainly potential enough, to be, again, the centerpiece of your rebuilding young team. The Lakers, they'll have a couple draft picks, but even they don't The Bucks have so little control over their draft picks for the next several years. They need immediate help on this project. And quite frankly, especially if the Lakers add Giannis to Luka, and those are the draft picks Milwaukee gets, that's not much immediate help. The Lakers really have nothing.
Right.
They have nothing to offer Milwaukee that on paper feels like that will top the rest of the league's offers.
Right. And so, it's going to look a lot less like players in like a pick like Anthony Davis and much more like, okay, let's start with Mikal Bridges got 5 first rounders. Like, let's start there. What would have to happen here, because a straight trade isn't going to make it work, is that Giannis would have to make it very clear that he wants to be a Laker and scare off all the teams that would try to trade for him in the scenario you were talking about in the last segment, Andy. I don't think that would be successful.
I don't either.
But what would happen in the meantime is then the Lakers would have a year and a half, whatever it might be, to try to acquire the assets to then acquire Giannis, or the Lakers would, the idea would just be to scare everyone off until the Lakers could create cap space to sign Giannis after a post 2027 opt out.
Right.
All
but
of these scenarios have huge problems because it is very difficult to simultaneously try to acquire the assets to trade for Giannis while also building a really good team around Luka.
I'm going to be honest. The scenario you're describing, where basically you're waiting around till 2027 when Giannis is turning 34, I'm not interested in that.
But
I mean, I'm not interested in
that. We're not even at that question yet. And then the other thing is, if you start to then, but that's the other side of it. If you're waiting then around, you're both getting an older Giannis, but let's say he's still really good. You're also hamstringing everything you do for 2 years.
That's not a plan.
Right.
I mean,
what it is though, is a version of how the Lakers used to act with every star that they, in terms of trying to make sure you have cap space for this year, for this star, cap space for this year, for this star. And we talked about it for Wednesday's show. There is every indication that Luka wants to stay in LA, that the Lakers are going to keep him in LA. They'll give him whatever deal he wants. And the Lakers are hoping he finishes his career here. But Bobby Marks at ESPN noted this week, and others have as well, the Lakers still have to show that they can, to really 100% seal all of this. The Lakers have to show in the near and long term that they can put a good team around Luka. If you immediately start changing your whole direction in terms of how you're team building to maybe kind of sort of give yourself a crack at Giannis, you are not doing the thing that you need to do to build around Luka. So
I'll be honest.
It's not even just the realistic, unrealistic. Philosophically, it's a terrible idea.
I'm going to be honest. What you just described never even crossed my mind. Like, as far as the Lakers actually doing that, it makes so little sense, particularly assuming you already have a star in hand. The thing that you are describing is what the Lakers used to do when they had no stars and they were trying to land the first one. So I'm going to be honest, it never even crossed my mind.
No, but as recently as a couple of years ago, the Lakers have, and granted, it's contextually different, not totally apples to apples, but we have to protect our cap space. We have to protect this. We've got everybody's up at the same time, and that gives they have at different times for different reasons become kind of obsessed over that 1 year where they have gobs and gobs and gobs of cap space that they can use on free agents, that they can use whatever, and moving away from that obsession. Not that it's not smart sometimes to line up your contracts or whatever, but moving away from that obsession of keeping a clean year at all costs has benefited the organization And it would be
Sure.
a mistake to go back to that.
Really what the Lakers are hoping for, because like I said, I think it is very difficult to imagine them being able to outbid the rest of the league because they really do not have what Milwaukee needs. What they are really hoping for is a combination of Giannis messaging in a way that somehow scares the other 28 teams around the league, which I don't picture happening because, again, Giannis is under contract for another 2 years, or that Giannis manages to guilt the Bucks into a sense of sentiment, in which case they will trade him to his number one option. I do think the Bucks, if and when they eventually trade Giannis, they're going to send him somewhere good in the same way the Blazers sent Damian Lillard, at least at the time it felt like, somewhere good. The Bucks were a competitive team. He was being teamed up with Giannis. That's a good destination. Like, the Bucks are not going to trade Giannis to the Wizards or the Hornets or the Blazers, regardless if those teams can come up with what the best version of what they need. They're not going to do that to Giannis. But if, say, the Knicks or the Heat, or pick another team that is Houston, to be honest, I think would be a great destination for Giannis. I think they would send Giannis there knowing he'd be in a competitive situation, even if it's not his first choice, because at some point, as great as Giannis has been to that organization, you do need to do what's best for the franchise.
So, I mean, the bottom line here is, if you are in the business of getting an Antetokounmpo, you might want to look into Kostas again, or Thanasis, who I believe is available, and go that route, because it is a long shot, which, at least from our perspective, if you have to be in the business of typing Doncic with, like, you have to do the little symbols and stuff like that, and Antetokounmpo, that's a heavy lift for your beat writers. It's a lot to do from a typing standpoint. Just
cut and paste.
that works too. How is the Warriors Wolves series, the early, at least game one, informing our opinion of JJ Redick? Get to that next.
Locked on Lakers is brought to you by Open Phone. If you're running a business, you know that every missed call is money left on the table. Think about it. When was the last time you had some type of service emergency, and if the first person or company that you called didn't answer, you just waited around for them to call you back? You didn't. And that's why you need Open Phone. Open Phone is the #1 business phone system designed to streamline and scale your customer communications, all through an app on your phone or computer. And you don't have to carry 2 phones. It's a great thing. With Open Phone, you can manage your business calls and texts from one app, whether you're at your desk or on the go. There's a shared inbox, so your team can jump into any conversation without missing a beat. There's AI call transcripts and summaries to save you time on follow-ups. They ensure that you never lose track of customer interaction. Open Phone is offering our listeners 20% off your first 6 months at openphone.com/lockedonnba. That's openphone.com/lockedonnba. And if you're switching from another service, Open Phone will even port your existing numbers over at no extra charge. Open Phone, no missed calls, no missed customers.
So Wednesday night, the Warriors, despite losing Steph Curry early in their game one of the conference semifinals in Minnesota, beat the Wolves 99-88. Andy, a lot of things interesting about this. First of all, the Warriors beat the Wolves despite the fact that they didn't have Steph for most of the game. The Wolves were terrible in this game. Again, which was frustrating to a lot of Lakers fans watching. Like, what happened to the team that throttled the Lakers and was so good, and Julius Randle and the 3-point shooting and Jaden McDaniels and all that stuff? Where did that team go? It was also a reminder of how poorly the Lakers played in game 5, because what Minnesota did in game 1, to me, looked a lot like what they did in game 5. The difference is, the Warriors on the road without Steph still figured out a way to be good enough to beat that team without being great themselves. They still figured out how to win, whereas the Lakers at home couldn't figure out how to at least win a game against a Wolves team that was clearly having a really bad night.
You just needed to find a way to get it done if you're the Lakers. And even like Buddy Hield, for example, he had 24 points in this game, but 22 of them were in the second half. He was inefficient overall, but hit 5 threes in this game. Draymond Green, of all people, hit 4 threes very early on. He couldn't hit much of anything in the second half, but the Warriors did a great job in this game of just either creating a buffer to hold off the Wolves after Steph got hurt, or just the Wolves never managed to capitalize on it, however you want to put it, a little bit of both. But it was ugly offense on both sides in this game. It's not like the Wolves got beat because the Warriors somehow managed to become the Splash Brothers version of themselves, despite having neither Splash Brother on hand.
Mm-hmm.
It was ugly on their side too, but they just managed to be resourceful in this game in ways that the Lakers could not take advantage of in Game 5. I mean, look, like we talked about, LeBron probably could not have played in the rest of this series anyway.
And
so
couldn't go to the Met Gala. He wasn't going to be able to play in Game 6.
Right. So you likely lose the series anyway, but it's still frustrating to see your team not at least take advantage of an opportunity in front of them, and who knows what could happen next.
So from there, the other part of this that is interesting, and there's some extenuating circumstances here. Again, Steph only played 13 minutes, so you have to scramble a little bit. But I know one of the things that got your attention in this game was the way in which Steve Kerr got into his bench. He played 1, 2, 3, 4 non-Steph players, but 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 guys more than 10 minutes. Again, no Steph changes things, and 12 guys got on the floor.
Right.
Guy Santos played 4 minutes. Quentin Post played 6. So short minutes for those guys, but they did play. And it's just it's Kerr is an interesting guy, because if you watch Warriors social media, which is a very active place, they go back and forth between he plays too many guys, he doesn't play enough guys, why is he going to play? Guys file in and out of the rotation, and a lot of the commentariat can't stand Kerr, in part because of how he does these things. But in this game, at least, a lot of guys got on the floor.
Even with Steph's injury obviously dictating the usage of all these players, particularly in the second half, I think some of this had been pre-designed, because 9 guys played in the first quarter, and that was before Steph got hurt. Mm-hmm. Steph didn't get hurt till the second quarter, so though he went pretty deep into his bench before Steph's injury was even a thing. And once Steph went down, Steve Kerr put some trust in Jonathan Kuminga, despite the well-documented lack of enduring trust in Kuminga. I mean, that's been a whole soap opera in the Bay Area. And he gave other guys a shot to help. And based on what we saw during the Lakers series against the Wolves, it feels to me like JJ would have reacted in a comparable situation, largely by just contracting the rotation. And
he would have played 4 guys.
Right. And you can argue about which bench or entire roster is better between the Lakers or the Wolves, but for what it's worth, there had been a lot of talk over the course of the season about the Warriors being too thin. But even if you want to say that Golden State's bench in the aggregate is better than the Lakers, I'm sorry, you cannot convince me that Pat effing Spencer is more automatically reliable and trustworthy than, frankly, Jordan Goodwin, much less Gabe Vincent. And I just think there's something JJ can learn from this. We talked about it before, about just extending more faith in his players, giving up a certain degree of control in exchange for faith, especially considering how much of the regular season, I think JJ very successfully built up a culture where those guys all had a role. They all mattered. They were all important. And my God, did he run away from that fast? And I think, frankly, unjustified.
I think in some ways it was and wasn't. Like, I mean, I go back to it. Like, there aren't a lot of guys that I wanted to see on the floor for this. I sometimes think trust is the wrong word. If you go back to Game 7, for example, Rockets Warriors, Steve Kerr played a short bench in that game, very short bench. You didn't see much of Pat Spencer in that game, and I'm not sure Spencer would have played 11 minutes if Steph doesn't get hurt. So, I mean, that scrambles your rotation in a big way. There's no question. But I do think broadly, over the course of that first round, for example, the Warriors definitely used their bench more. The Rockets definitely used their bench more. And what I think is, I think JJ definitely got tighter as the playoffs began. There's no question. And I agree with you, kind of big picture. Part of that tightness just makes you less willing to be like, you know what, I'm going to take a step back and we're going to put Gabe out there for a little while. I mean, we're really, to me, at least in this conversation, talking about mostly Vincent and Vanderbilt, and maybe to some degree Goodwin. I'm not putting the Jackson Hayes part of the conversation in this because I just don't think it applies.
I mean, if you want to remove one guy from it, fine, but I'm talking about 4 guys.
No, I understand. No, I understand. And so the question for me is always like, where do you, and I think this kind of thing, it's not so much, hey, Steve Kerr used these guys, those guys, what combinations and why and whatever. It's just it's a body language thing. It's a mindset thing. It's all that stuff. What are you doing to make your team feel tighter rather than looser? Yeah. And it's not so much that I feel like some of these guys always have to play, but why aren't you playing? What is the sort of motivating you? And in that sense, I agree with you. I think that his tightness dictated some of his decisions. Even if the decisions were defensible, it probably eliminated options from his option tree that should have been there.
Well, here's the thing. If you're going to remove Jackson Hayes from the rotation altogether by the end of the series, which we don't need to rehash the reasoning for all that, but you're also going to shorten your bench, and you're not going to try a different avenue with, say, Dalton Connect, and you and I heading into this series, both into the playoffs, said we don't expect Dalton to play. We understand why he won't play, and we're not even upset that Dalton didn't play. But if you're removing Hayes and you're shortening the minutes for Gabe and Vando and Goodwin, and you won't go another avenue with Connect, like at some point, it's like, dude, you are leaving yourself with no outs.
There's just not a lot you can change. There's just not much you can change.
You have to be willing to try something, even if you don't have full confidence in it. Unless you're dealing with a team that is like the front runner, you're rarely going to feel fully confident in everything you're doing.
So it's something to watch for the rest of the series, and something to watch how other teams handle these sorts of situations. If you look at the Celtics, who clearly have a deeper bench and things like that, they go deeper into it when guys are healthy, different varieties of players play and all that kind of stuff. But, it's something to look as we evaluate Redick going forward, and certainly the stuff that I'm sure he'll be looking at as well. Locked On Lakers on YouTube is where you can hang out with 35,000 plus subscribers to the channel. Leave us questions, leave us comments. We'll see you tomorrow.